Ilia Topuria just told the world that Justin Gaethje crossed a personal line. Not a trash talk line. Not a promotional line. A personal line. He said Gaethje brought in his ex-wife. He said Gaethje brought in his father. He said Gaethje has lost his respect entirely, and that when they meet in the Octagon, he is going to put him to sleep in front of his whole family, his whole country, and everyone watching. That is not the language of a fighter managing a rivalry for commercial purposes. That is the language of a man who is genuinely angry. And if you have watched what Ilia Topuria does to people when he is operating at his coldest and most composed, the idea of him walking into this fight with an additional layer of personal motivation is one of the most uncomfortable things the MMA world could have handed Justin Gaethje. Let's start with the personal dimension, because it matters to everything that follows. Topuria has been, throughout his championship run, remarkably consistent in his emotional presentation before fights. He is confident without being chaotic. He is dismissive without being disrespectful. He maintains the kind of composure that reads as the product of genuine belief rather than performance. And when that composure shifts, when something actually gets under his skin and he stops managing the interaction and starts reacting to it, you are seeing something real. His statement that Gaethje crossed a personal line, that he brought in family members, that he has gone from a man Topuria respected to a man he intends to punish, that is a shift. Whether it helps him or creates a vulnerability by adding emotional heat to a fight that his best performances have been won through cold precision is one of the genuinely interesting psychological questions heading into fight night. The expert analysis surrounding this fight has been remarkably consistent in one direction, and it is worth presenting it honestly rather than manufacturing false balance. Volkanovski, a man who knows exactly what it feels like to be on the wrong end of Topuria's precision, predicted a knockout victory in the first or second round, with the caveat that if Gaethje is defensively disciplined early, it might extend to the third. He made a specific observation that does not get enough attention. Gaethje is actually more defensively sound than his reputation suggests. He is not simply a man who walks forward and takes shots. Before he commits to his offensive bursts, he shells up, he manages distance, he is careful about giving clean looks. The chaos comes after he has established himself, not before. And Volkanovski's read is that Gaethje understands he needs to be defensively responsible against Topuria's precision before he can create his own opportunities. T.J. Dillashaw went further in the direction of Topuria, arguing that Gaethje's chaos, the very quality that has made him one of the most entertaining fighters of his generation, is precisely what is going to get him finished. The openings that Gaethje creates when he commits to his offensive style are the openings that a technical, precise fighter like Topuria is built to exploit. Dillashaw was direct about it. Topuria is going to take advantage of those moments and put his lights out. That is not a prediction built on generic favoritism. That is a technical read from a former champion who understands what elite-level striking exchanges look like and where the vulnerabilities in Gaethje's specific style appear. Henry Cejudo framed it in terms of statistics and necessity. 83% of analysts pick Topuria. Cejudo's argument for the 17% is that Gaethje has to go as violently as possible, has to throw the kitchen sink, because when you are facing someone who is technically superior with superior composure, the only logical path is to overwhelm the system rather than try to outwork it. That is actually a legitimate tactical argument. If Gaethje tries to win a disciplined, strategic fight against Topuria, he is playing on Topuria's strongest ground. If he creates maximum chaos from the first second, he at least creates the kind of unpredictability that has produced upsets in this sport before. The problem is that Topuria's stated philosophy is specifically to bring calm into that chaos, to not match the energy, to not get drawn into the storm, to find the center of it and operate from there. And his entire championship run has demonstrated that this philosophy is not just a talking point. It is a real operational system that has worked against every kind of opponent he has faced. Eddie Alvarez gave the most technically specific breakdown of where Gaethje's actual chance lies, and it is worth examining closely because it identifies a real window rather than a theoretical one. Alvarez said Gaethje cannot lead and expect to catch Topuria. Topuria's eyes are too sharp, his posture too clean, for a clean shot to land off a Gaethje initiation. The window, according to Alvarez, is in between Topuria's own exchanges. When Topuria fires a combination, there is a brief moment of transition, the reset, the return to position, and that is where Gaethje has to be brave enough to fire back simultaneously rather than waiting for Topuria to finish. That requires a specific kind of courage that goes beyond general toughness. It requires Gaethje to commit to a counter at the exact moment when he is most likely to absorb a clean shot himself. The calf kick, in Alvarez's analysis, is the setup weapon. It keeps Topuria's attention divided, it creates a threat that has to be managed, and it opens the timing window for the simultaneous exchange. Alvarez also identified a specific technical flaw in Gaethje's game that becomes critical against someone at Topuria's level. Between exchanges, Gaethje's eyes wander. His vision drifts off his opponent in the moments when he is resetting, when he is processing what just happened, when he is transitioning from defensive to offensive mode. At most levels of the sport, that brief lapse is manageable because opponents are not precise enough or fast enough to punish a half-second window consistently. Against Topuria, it is knockout city. His accuracy and his ability to identify and immediately exploit a defensive lapse are documented across every fight he has been in at the championship level. The moment Gaethje's eyes go off him, the shot is coming. Eric Nixick reinforced the general theme while adding a specific reference point: the Poirier fight, specifically the unexpected same-side head kick that Gaethje landed seemingly out of nowhere. His argument is that Gaethje always has a chance because his offensive repertoire contains weapons that appear without the typical telegraphing that allows opponents to prepare. The head kick against Poirier was not set up in any conventional sense. It came from a position and in a moment that most opponents would not have identified as a kicking threat. That kind of unpredictability is genuine and it matters. But Nixick also concluded that if he had to pick, Topuria has more paths to victory, more ways to win this fight, than Gaethje does. That asymmetry in available winning scenarios is the fundamental structural problem for Gaethje regardless of his individual dangerous moments. Diego Lopez offered the most interesting counter-argument, and it deserves honest engagement. His point is specific and technically grounded. Topuria has not fought a genuine one-punch knockout artist at this level before. Volkanovski is elite, but not a one-shot finisher. Holloway is elite, but the same. Oliveira has power, but his knockouts are typically the product of sustained damage rather than a single clean shot. Gaethje is different. Gaethje has ended fights with a single punch, a single kick, in moments that happened so fast that neither the opponent nor the crowd fully processed what occurred until it was already over. The argument is not that Gaethje is better than Topuria overall. It is that Topuria has not been tested by the specific threat that Gaethje represents, and that unknown is meaningful in a sport where a single exchange can change everything regardless of the overall quality differential between fighters. Michael Bisping made the same argument from a different angle, that it is insane to assume Topuria simply walks through Gaethje, because both men have serious knockout power and mixed martial arts has never respected the idea of inevitability. He made his prediction caveat explicit. He has data, he has analysis, he has historical record and stylistic matching. And sometimes someone just comes along and says no, and knocks the guy out. That is the nature of the sport. That is why people watch. And Gaethje, more than almost any other fighter on the roster, has been the person who says no when the analysis pointed elsewhere. Michael Chiesa leaned into the upset for emotional as much as analytical reasons. He said it is hard for him to root against Justin Gaethje at the White House, with this much at stake, at this stage of his career. That sentiment is real and it is shared broadly across the fanbase, even among people who expect Topuria to win. Gaethje has been one of the most authentically beloved fighters in the sport for years, not because of manufactured personality, not because of promotional positioning, but because every time he walks into a cage, he gives everything he has without reservation, without calculation, without protecting himself from the possibility of loss. He goes all in every time. And there is something about watching a man like that in the biggest moment of his career that makes even analytical people want to leave room for the possibility that this is the night it finally works out for him. There is one piece of context that has not gotten enough attention in the broader conversation, and it changes the psychological landscape of this fight in a specific way. Topuria said he has not yet reached his peak. He said it plainly, without qualification, that despite producing what looks from the outside like the most dominant championship run in recent memory, he does not believe he is operating at his ceiling. If that is true, and there is no reason to assume it is not, given how methodically and consistently he has improved across every phase of his career, then what Gaethje is walking into is not the finished product. It is a version of Topuria that still has room to grow. The man who knocked out Oliveira in the first round was not the ceiling. The man who walked out of the Pat McAfee interview with cold eyes and a settled face was not the ceiling. Whatever that ceiling is, Gaethje is going to encounter it on fight night at the White House. Here is where everything lands. The consensus is real and it is not manufactured. Topuria wins this fight. The knockout probability is high. Round 1 or round 2 is the most common projection from people who know this sport at the deepest level, with the caveat that Gaethje's defensive intelligence may extend it to 3. The leg kick is Gaethje's best tactical tool and it needs to be deployed from the opening bell consistently, not occasionally. The simultaneous counter, the bravery to fire back in the moment when Topuria is firing, is the window Eddie Alvarez identified, and it is real, and it requires Gaethje to make a decision in a fraction of a second that goes against every survival instinct a fighter develops. And the personal dimension, Topuria fighting with genuine anger on top of his usual cold precision, is the variable that nobody can fully model in advance. Justin Gaethje has been knocked out cold over 30 times in training and has kept coming back. He has been a 5-1 underdog and has found a way. He has been written off repeatedly across his career and has consistently found a way to make the people who wrote him off look stupid. If there is a version of this fight where Gaethje wins, it lives in one single exchange, in one moment where his eyes find the timing window Alvarez described, and his right hand lands before Topuria completes the reset. That moment is not impossible. This sport has never respected impossibility. But the man standing across from him has spent his entire life preparing for exactly that moment, and walking directly through it without flinching.